Oh, look, you got Chris Reeve right behind you.
Yeah, I'm trying to spruce up this area behind me. It's kind of hard because this wall, you can't really tell on the video, but it's curved.
Oh,
So
really?
I tried to put him here first, and it just
Are
looked like
you
he
in a
was.
turret? What the hell is
No,
that?
it's just a weird old war era fourplex that has some weird design choice. It's like
Yeah,
this curved
I
wall.
will say it's sparse in that room. It does look like a good workroom kind of place, but I will say you also look like you're in a hostage video. I just want to say to my family, do whatever they ask.
Yeah. They let me have this poster. They're actually very nice.
They actually love Peter Gabriel, so that's cool. Do you record in that room?
No, this is just my living room. It's actually sort of my office.
I mean, I just see your speaker behind you, but I guess that would make sense. You would probably have some baffling or something on the walls if you were recording in there.
Yeah, this will change. I am going to be fixing it around, but I moved some stuff up. This is actually a very small practice amp. I just moved just so there would be something there.
Oh,
It looks like looks like I have important things to do.
Yeah. I'm not even trying. It's just like, look at the nerd shit. Yay!
Hey, the bookshelf is an old standard.
Dude,
works well. You can't beat it, really.
All my walls. That's why I don't have anything hanging, is because it's all bookshelves. But
that's fantastic.
One of my favorite, speaking of Kolchak the Night Stalker, I got to find a place to hang this. It's a recreation of the newspaper from the original TV movie of the Night Stalker with the vampire composite. And so the article is by Carl Kolchak. I fucking love this.
That's great.
As a Kolchak fan. But yeah, I got nowhere to hang it. And my signed Action Comics #1 reproduction, but actually signed by Jerry Siegel. It fell behind that bookshelf there.
Oh,
because I had it sitting on top, and then I guess something jiggled it, and it's behind it. So I'm gonna have to pull everything off that, then move the bookshelf back, retrieve it. It is framed. It's framed, but yeah, that was an eBay find from years ago. He had, he died in 93, I think, or 96. And, but in 91, he had signed a bunch of recreations of Action Comics #1. Schuster was already dead. But for $100, I got this verified, signed Jerry Siegel reproduction of Action Comics #1.
Very cool.
Yeah, that is a prized possession. Even though I apparently decided to keep it behind a bookshelf. Anyway, so how do you want to do the podcast? I love just chatting. But if you just want to roll into something.
Yeah, I figure, well, just based on my experience with Slappercast, which is a podcast I've been doing with Blackguards for 3 years now, which
do you also
keeps changing.
Do you also Zoom with those folks?
The Slappercast lately has been more of a road diary than a podcast. We tape it really quickly in the van using iPhones. It's sometimes they're only like 16 minutes long.
I'm gonna have to check it out. I mean, I know you've been doing it for a while, and I assumed it was all about bass playing. So I was like going, man, I'd love to hear Chad talk, but I don't give a shit about.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah, I don't slap the bass. People come up to me sometimes at shows. It's like the new Freebird thing. It's like slap the bass, slap the bass.
Really?
Shut up.
Is that? I mean, you mean you never do it, or it's just you prefer to not unless it really calls for it?
Yeah, the Flea.
Oh, I know what that is.
Bigot a barrel. I've never really
Man,
embraced
you're no
that
less
as a
Claypool.
style. No, I'm not.
You know who? I mean, Patrick White. I have to admit, has become a pretty fucking amazing bass player.
Yeah.
And for a while, he kept. I mean, Patrick, is pretty. I'm not saying flighty, but he changes with the wind. And so for a while, he was literally, I don't think I'm ever going to play guitar again. He goes, I think I was always meant to play the bass. And I'm like, well, I mean, I want you to be happy. And he was in a lot of bands up here that with me, whatever. And undeniably, and was undeniably great at bass playing. But he kept saying like, it feels better in my hands, and I think it's because of your arthritis, man. It's because of he was so out of doing guitar stuff that getting back into guitar was like painful for him. So for him, it was much more comfortable. And yes, he liked to slap the bass. He could do a bunch of Les Claypool, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's cool. I've attempted several times. It's just not a style that I'm passionate or interested enough in.
You know who didn't do a lot of bass slapping? Well. Paul McCartney didn't do a lot of bass slapping.
And those really are the bass players I'm more influenced by.
Every now and then, okay, did you watch, and you have to have, but did you watch McCartney 3-2-1?
Oh, with Rick Rubin?
Yeah. Did you watch that?
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
It was I love it. I mean, I love Paul McCartney, always will. Yeah. But it was just, the thing I loved about it was Rick Rubin's the real deal, but he's still just this fanboy. And so him just giggling, like when he's working the sliders and pulling stuff down and going like, how did you come up with this? And he's like, going, listen to this bass. He goes, you don't have to be doing any of that. He goes, yeah, well, I always just think in terms of melody, even if I'm playing the bass. I'm like, that's the deal, is that he is not just laying the bottom. He's not just being the bass. He is coming up with lines, and it's obvious when you listen to the music, but when you single it out and you're just like going, listen to what that man did with a bass. It's nuts.
Yeah.
And it's left-handed.
Yeah.
What's with that? I remember that part of the documentary where Rick Rubin just goes, what's with that?
I need to watch that again. I was slightly disappointed in it just because it wasn't quite as revealing as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, not revealing, but, ask him questions that he hasn't been asked before.
It was really scattershot, but I mean, every now and then things I hadn't heard a million times. I will say this, and it's true of Stan Lee also, speaking of comics, because we'll get to that. There are some people who they came to terms with, this is who I am, that the public needs me to be. Mm-hmm. And so therefore they can endlessly talk about the same things over and over again and not make it sound like they're tired of it. Mm-hmm. Like McCartney still is very, to this day, and he knows he's a fucking legend, but he's still like we just kick some stuff around. He's still very modest about that stuff, and it feels genuine. And even if he's telling for the 80 millionth time the story about scrambled eggs becoming yesterday, he's delivering it. And it's true with Stan Lee, where I don't know if I ever told you this. I got to go, I don't remember what year it was, but I was living in LA, and it was a night called Marvel Then and Now, which was at UCLA campus, and it was hosted by Kevin Smith and his two guests, Stan Lee and then Joe Quesada. So it was old Marvel editor-in-chief, new Marvel editor-in-chief at the time. And other than the fact that their mics were, that thing was turned into a DVD, and I'm amazed because their mics were shit. There were technical difficulties all over, and I'm like going, I paid money for this. I can hear them, but it's all them like going boom, boom. Really, guys? Boom, boom. It was horrible.
Yeah.
On a technical end. But there is Stan Lee for the millionth time going, I actually, the Hulk was gray. He was actually gray. And it was a mistake that made him green. And then we said, the green works. And he's doing the same stories we've heard him.
Yeah.
I always said, some sort of insect. I was like, maybe he's a wasp man. Or, some sort of that didn't sound right. And Spider-Man. And you're like going, Jesus Christ, for the 8 millionth time this man is telling that story. And he's 80 some odd years old, energetic, full of it. And I did love that Kevin Smith wouldn't cut him any slack. Kevin Smith is like going, we've heard that one, Stan. We've heard that a million times. He's like going, I think what people really want to know is, do you ever curse? And he's like going, I know you work the way you do, Kevin, and you're trying to get me to say things. Everyone here is an adult. They all want to hear you say fuck. Come on. He's like, I don't do the things that you do, Kevin. I had a great time, but it was amazing to me that there are people that, it's like this is who I am, and people want to hear the same story over and over and over again.
I'm trying to remember the name of this. There was an old British comedy skit show. It wasn't Kids in the Hall. Oh, that's not British. It's Canadian.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to remember. I can't remember. But they had this skit where George Martin, they have one of the guys playing George Martin. He's talking the same stories about, Strawberry Fields, the same stories you've heard him say on every single documentary. And he's talking, and then he gets kidnapped and thrown in a van, and all this stuff happens, and he just continues talking about the Beatles the entire time. It's really great.
Awesome.
I need to go look that up.
I haven't seen that skit, so whatever show you saw. Yeah. Are you sure you didn't just dream this one? Because I've never heard it.
It was a while ago. It was back, I think, in the 90s when the anthology had come out and all that stuff. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that is fairly accurate. And George Martin, same thing, where it's like you never saw him go, oh, okay, all right, for the last time.
Yeah.
Yes, they used to go on a lot of tea breaks. No, I didn't know they were doing LSD. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
No, he's always like, well, the boys were always impish and blah, blah. And like, yeah, we've heard this a million times.
Anyway. Okay, so.
Yeah.
Last night, I rewatched Superman Returns.
I thought about doing that when you sent me that email, and I had to watch a terrible movie for my other podcast.
What was that? Monster movie?
Yeah, it was The Mummy Lives from 1993 with Tony Curtis. Elderly Tony Curtis in a really cheap mummy movie, playing like a resurrected Egyptian priest, but still sounding like Tony Curtis. So it's a terrible movie, but I laughed all the way through it because it's like, oh, Zoth, I ask thee to give me the power to defeat my enemies. Hello. It was just he was so New Jersey about it. It was hilarious.
Wow.
But anyway, Superman Returns, what did you think how long had it been since you'd seen it?
I don't think I was trying to rack my brain. It's definitely been a long time since I've seen it. I may not have seen it since I saw it in the theaters because I went to see it once, and I actually liked it, but I think I only went to see it one time, maybe twice.
I saw it twice in the theater, and I remember the build up to it, which I'm sure we should talk about how much we were anticipating it too. But when I saw it, it was good enough for me to see a second time. And do I prefer it to Man of Steel? Yes. Do I have lots of problems with it? Yes. But I do own it. I mean, because I did get that Blu-ray box set in the little metal case that was all the Superman films.
Yeah.
And up to the day. So in other words, Man of Steel isn't in there, but Superman Returns. And it has the Fleischer cartoons and all that. It's got a bunch of stuff. And I did think I would rewatch it. There are certainly things in it I like a lot.
Yeah.
And there's a lot I'm like, ooh.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it a lot more than I was expecting to be like that the whole time. Like, but I was like, yeah.
You didn't get taken. You didn't get. Sometimes this does happen where retroactively things come out, and then it taints your enjoyment of something. Like we know that Bryan Singer's a piece of shit human being.
Yes.
We know that Kevin Spacey's a piece of shit human being, and we're like, okay, can we actually watch the movie and still kind of enjoy it?
Yeah. I tried to put that out of my mind as best I could.
I think that's what you got to do. All right. Yeah. So when it was announced, how excited were you?
I'm sure I was. I don't really remember the build up to it very much right now. I'm sure I was thrilled because I knew that it was going to be a sequel, an actual continuation of the Donner Superman.
Yeah, but you didn't know how much it would be a sequel to the Donner.
I was stunned. Yeah, I remember being kind of stunned that they actually had Marlon Brando in it, using footage from that and the same music, it has the same opening, the same titles. I'd kind of forgotten about how hard they leaned into the sequel thing. It's almost like this weird, it straddles this weird line between straight on sequel and soft reboot in a way.
It is. Yes, it's exactly that. And what's so weird is, one thing I'll say is that movie wouldn't have happened without Bryan Singer. Like his name got that made. And I'm sure Warner Brothers was, because they're teasing him away from X-Men. They had to have thrown so much money at him. because he ended up not doing X3 to do Superman Returns. So Warner Brothers snagged him. Now that's great, but I can't say it's a bad thing that he directed it. But I think the worst things about Superman Returns are Bryan Singer, Bryan Singer, and his slavish. And I love Superman the movie and Superman 2. His slavish attempt at doing a direct sequel to the extent where it feels out of time. Like, it doesn't feel like it's a 90s or 2000s Superman movie. It feels like it's 1978 again, and I'm like, I don't think that's the way to go. And plus, copying beats from those movies, you're like, don't copy. Give us the stuff that was brand new, except for the kid. I'm all about, like, the whole sequences we'd never seen before, which he took from comics and so forth. The plane rescue, unbelievable scene. Yes. Unbelievable. The scene of him hovering above the earth and listening to everyone's pleas for help, which of course he grabbed from Paul Dini's Superman Hope graphic novel. But still, to see it visualized on film, great. And I liked a Luthor who is both kind of the Gene Hackman criminal genius, but also with an edge, like vicious, a dangerous guy, which is something that's missing from Hackman, other than one of my favorite lines from the original movie. But Lex, my mom lives in Hackensack. And then he just looks at his watch and goes, just shakes his head. That is the coldest. That is one of the best Lex Luthor moments of all time, where he just goes, no, she doesn't. Oh, fuck. Anyway, so there are so many things to like in Superman Returns. Unfortunately, there's almost an equal amount of things that hinder it. Like, Luthor's big plot in this new movie is the same plot, just on a bigger scale. The real estate thing. And I'm like, stop with the real estate thing.
Yeah. And that was an interesting idea.
He doesn't have Otis or Miss Teschmacher anymore, but he still has comedically crazy. I'm like, stop. Get some real muscle.
That was the weirdest thing to me. Is like, Kitty, probably, what's her name? Posey Parker.
Yeah, Posey Parker.
Her character, Kitty, essentially was Miss Parker Posey. Oops,
you always invert names. And it's like, what's her name, Jones Brendan? I don't know, Smiley Chad. I think it's probably
Bizarro. But she was essentially Miss Teschmacher, but not, because obviously there was so much that was clearly people were doing this, trying to do the same characters that were in the Donner films, film.
Well, it's just sort of like he did take it. So the Donner films, Donner/Lester films, so as the template, and I respect that only when it hurts it, only when it looks like, dude, we actually did want you to bring the character forward. And if the only way you're going to do that is by having him have abandoned the Earth for 5 years to go look for Krypton or whatever, and find out, I'm like, really? He couldn't just assume it blew up? I mean, didn't his crystalline dad AI go, yeah, the planet blew up? He's like, I don't believe you. I'm going to build a spaceship. I'm going to look at the dust. And then I'm going to come back and go, yeah, it's really gone. Leaving Lois, not knowing she was pregnant. The whole thing with having the kid, just like in the comics, I'm not anti Superman and Lois being parents. I'm not. It's just that, especially when you're talking in the terms of film, this was the chance to kick off a really awesome new series of Superman films with a good actor. I thought Brandon Routh did a great job.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't like, I mean, she's an okay actress.
There's so much more to say about that, but Lois Lane's supposed to be funny. And there was no comedic anything in Kate Barker's performance.
Not just funny. The thing that Margot Kidder brought to it, which, Margot Kidder's career really is an odd one. R.I.P. by the way, to everyone involved. Basically, they're all dead. But but the thing that is that you never for a second doubt that she's highly intelligent, but that crackling dialogue, that quick-witted, that's a bit of a throwback to like the idea of the female reporter from the 30s and 40s movies, where it's like the fast patter, very quick. She's a terrible speller, but she's a brilliant writer. And she's not just funny, she's fun. There's a life there, and Kate Bosworth didn't give us any of that. And again, I didn't really think Superman as absentee dad was really a great take.
Yeah, or creepy stalker boyfriend, ex-boyfriend.
Creepy stalker boyfriend, where he just, that whole thing of, I mean, him, is it kind of bittersweet that he's an isolated outsider where he hovers outside? I'm like, yeah, but he's also using his X-ray vision and super hearing to peep on their life. And I'm like, that's gross. Yeah. I do like that they played off that James Marsden's character, who I can't remember his name, but her husband. I like the fact that they made him like a good guy, because they could have, they could have made him like, well, clearly she settled. It's like, no, he is an awesome dude, which actually makes things more complicated when Superman comes back and goes, well, I am a godlike being, but you're pretty cool. I hope you enjoy boning my ex-girlfriend and raising my son. I thought that dialogue was inappropriate. But I mean, so there are problems I have with it. But again, like in retrospect, I so prefer it to Man of Steel because its heart, weirdly, is in the right place.
And that was something that Bryan Singer did do well. And all the Superman, all the superhero movies I've seen him do,
Yeah, he does want to put character at the front and center, which is important.
It says a lot about why, the first two X-Men movies were so good, because he was a disciple of Richard Donner. He just loved him. So as you can clearly see in Superman Returns.
Yeah, so, I mean, that is where I said, I get it. However, I do think this is going way too far into slavish.
For sure.
And it should have been more of its own movie.
Yeah.
That said, I mean, he, and again, him bringing in, just for the fans, he has Noel Neal and Jack Larson in it. I'm like, come on, man. That's just Easter eggs for the nerds, and I'm happy. It's like, there's Lois. There's Jimmy Olsen from the old TV show. They're in it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess the rest of the cast was okay. I'd forgotten who played Jimmy in this one. I was in my head. I was getting him mixed up with the Jimmy Olsen from Lois and Clark, I think.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, this guy. I actually like this guy.
Yeah, I like that guy too, but I couldn't remember his name, so I looked it up. Sam Huntington. Okay, he was good. I thought he was a good Jimmy.
Yeah. Frank Langella as Perry White.
Fine, Perry White.
Yeah.
Very serious. I mean, and actually I kind of like that. He was, the whole thing with Donner's film is everything in Metropolis, we talked about this last time, is a little bit stylized, slightly cartoony, and that includes everyone around him. So Perry White, is kind of like a Kent, blah, 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 and all of his wacky stuff, and is like going, I've been in the news business 20 years, man and boy, and all that stuff. And you're like, oh, he's funny. And this was basically Singer going, it's the same atmosphere, but I'm adding a little bit of more realism to it.
Yeah.
A little bit.
There was, I was missing the chemistry. If they're really trying to recreate that same ensemble. Mm-hmm. The original cast had amazing chemistry, and
it just clicked.
Not quite there in this one. It's not terrible, but there's not much chemistry between Brandon and Kate.
One thing, and I will say, and again, I'm not shaming anyone based on looks or anything, but when you've got Brandon Routh, who is about the same size as Christopher Reeve, as in height, width, the whole thing, and Kate Bosworth is a tiny little person. She is itty bitty. So any of their scenes where like the romantic, oh, you're back. We're on the roof of the Daily Planet. Now we're going to do our hug and fly up into the air thing. And I'm like, look at him holding that little doll. I mean, Margot Kidder was at least, a tallish lady, and she didn't seem to be just swallowed up by
Dwarfed.
Christopher Reeves.
Yeah. Yeah.
I should show you this because I am a nerd. Hang on one sec.
Yeah.
It's the limited pop figurine duo of Chris Reeve and Margot Kidder from Superman where they're flying. Yeah. Yeah.
I had to read my mind. I remember that being a common topic of discussion
Can you read my mind? Do you know all the shit I'm thinking of?
Yeah.
Those are the lyrics.
Yeah.
Do you know all the shit?
It was nice to hear. I think it's in the maybe it's in this. I dug this. This is really one of the only Superman DVDs I have. Is the Donner cut.
Oh yeah, Donner cut.
I think it's in the commentary of this where Donner says, "Yeah, I think maybe we went a little too far." But maybe it's not in this one. Maybe I guess it would be the commentary for the original film. You say, yeah, maybe this might have been a little too much, but oh well.
I mean, every time it gets to that, talk about knowing that something has its heart in the right place. I don't think it works. It's a lovely theme. Again, John Williams knocks all of this shit out of the park.
God. Yeah.
So the music's beautiful, and even the lyrics aren't bad, but having a spoken word inner monologue in rhyming couplets for Lois Lane is bizarre.
Which was weird.
And they would have had her sing it if Margot Kidder could have sung. And it was turned into a top 40 hit by Melissa Manchester. So they were trying to get something on the charts. Yeah. It's not enough that they wanted butts in the seats to see the movie. They wanted to sell some LPs too. What the fuck?
Very strange.
Yeah, so I always fast forward.
Yeah, right.
Because the visuals are still great. It's like if I fast forward, I'm just looking at them flying. It's gorgeous. I'm like, the effects have dated, but that still looks great. Yeah. I'm down for them flying around forever without hearing her going, "Can you read my mind? Do you know all the shit I'm thinking of? Look at me trembling like a little girl."
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I have recited the lyrics on public transportation here in Portland. And I get a lot of looks.
Interesting.
I wonder, maybe I should do that as a TikTok or something. This weird old man sitting on a bus going, "Can you read my mind? Do you know all the things I'm thinking of?"
that would probably be a pretty popular one.
Yeah, I think so. And the kids love any reference to a 1978 movie. Anyway, so Superman Returns. I mean, again, moments are awesome, and they're taking advantage of, and that's smart, the advances in effects, because the scene where Metropolis is shuddering and all that stuff, and the windows start breaking. When Superman flies at super speed, turns around and uses his heat vision while he's flying to like vaporize the falling glass. I'm just like, dude, you get it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in Man of Steel, and we're going to get to that. Basically, Metropolis goes to shit. Like 18 9/11s are happening, and Superman pauses to have a little cute chat with Lois while people are dying in rubble. God damn.
Yeah.
Now I'm mad again. What did you do to me?
That whole sequence where he's rescuing Metropolis from the fallout of the little earthquake thing that happens, I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, I think the only thing that Snyder finally gave us that, including Superman Returns, didn't, Superman, except for Superman 2, which did give us this, but generally speaking in Superman movies, and it should be the case, Superman does spend a lot of time saving people and saving things, so it's a lot of displays of him lifting things and pushing things and doing things like that. But Superman as action hero, we haven't gotten a lot of. So I loved Superman 2 back in the day because he was actually punching it out with hyper powerful Kryptonian villains. And Man of Steel, the only thing it gave us finally is I was like, man, Superman is hitting shit. He's hitting big ships. He's hitting other Kryptonian villains. I'm like, all right, thanks, Zach.
Yeah. But that was a complaint, or I heard of Superman Returns, is that he doesn't punch anybody. in the entire movie.
I don't think Superman has to punch stuff, but it is part of the repertoire. And the main thing is the movies keep resetting, essentially. So they always go back to Lex. And I fucking love Lex Luthor. Come on. But he's not a villain that you punch unless he's in his like powered exosuit or whatever, or piloting some huge mecha or something. But, and they always do Kryptonian villains if he's going to, I'm like, guys, move on. Where's our Brainiac? Exactly. Where's our Brainiac? Where's him against the Parasite? Or you could pull one of the more recent folks in. Where's Mongol or Doomsday even? I mean, come on. Well, they did do Doomsday. I didn't watch that movie. Can I admit that? I haven't seen Batman
v Superman. Oh, you.
I refused.
You're my hero.
Well, I refused because Man of Steel hurt me. And I was like, I was like, if the same man is making another movie with this character, it will be just as bad. But did I watch Justice League? Yes. Did I watch both versions? I did. Did I think Snyder's cut was actually slightly better? Yes. It's still not what I want, but I did recognize it was a better film in Snyder's cut. It's still just not my Justice League. Hashtag not my Justice League.
Yeah.
So I don't know how they pulled off the Doomsday thing. I heard about your mother's name is Martha.
And I kind of understand. That was one part where I kind of understood what they were going for there, which I wasn't down with this whole thing of them trying to kill each other. I thought that was a complete waste of time. Just trusting each other, fine, but actually trying to kill each other, I don't know. I mean, it kind of made sense following from what had happened in Man of Steel, because that was Zack Snyder's way of addressing the criticisms, which he did do a little bit.
I got the idea. That's not a bad take intrinsically, but this was my take on it. And again, from a guy who didn't see it, but knows enough about it to at least offer this. This is a mistake made in a lot of superhero movies, including the X-Men series and so forth. They always want to jump to the big storylines that are, hugely famous. And I'm like, the problem is, and actually Star Trek, when Abrams reboot, I loved that first one. I thought I'm surprised you recast everybody, but that is a great way to relaunch a series. And then immediately he screws the pooch. Because he wanted to jump to Wrath of Khan. And I'm like, the reason Wrath of Khan worked was the groundwork of Space Seed, the original episode, and then catching up to that villain years later. And having Spock die, or in the flip, having in Abrams, have Kirk be the one dying heroically. I'm like, it lost all impact because those guys have known each other for 2 weeks. I'm like, why it works in Wrath of Khan is we've known these people for 30 plus years. That's incredibly emotional. So in the case of Batman versus Superman, they're trying to do like a Dark Knight Returns thing, which is I'm going to wipe the smug grin off your face, Clark. You thought you were so powerful and you're serving the wrong masters. So these two guys are in their death clutches and they have yet to fucking meet, man.
Yeah. It was so frustrating because it was kind of exciting. It's like, oh, finally we're going to get Batman and Superman in a movie together.
And that's what
But then they said they couldn't stop there. No, we're going to have Wonder Woman too. Oh, and they're going to try to kill each other. And then Doomsday is going to show up and all three of them are going to fight Doomsday. And then Superman will die.
Yeah. all in one movie. Speaking of X-Men, it's like X3 where they're like, well, we could probably do an entire movie about Dark Phoenix, but we're also going to do the mutant cure storyline and a bunch of characters you've been waiting for, like Angel. He's going to be in there too for 2 minutes. Hope you enjoyed your Angel, everybody. And you're just like, dude, you can't cram all that shit into one movie and have it be coherent and have it land. So how about have Superman and Batman meet? Have, just like you said, have them be distrustful or not like each other's methods, but then grudgingly over the course of the movie, realize they need each other. You know who did it very well? Nigh on perfectly? The fucking animated series. the Batman Superman movie they did, that was the first time they met an animated universe. They balanced everything. They had Lois Lane dating Bruce Wayne for a little bit and Superman getting jealous. I mean, all that. I'm not saying exactly that's what I want, but you got Luther and the Joker, and the whole thing is done in 90 minutes in animated form, and it's satisfied. And I'm like, it's because those people get the fucking characters.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm angry. I'm so angry.
I've been thinking about the animated stuff. I need to go and watch it because all the research I've been doing, like digging back into this thing, that keeps coming up.
Well, I mean, I can only say that as a longtime DC fan, the people who have translated it best, and I'm including over Richard Donner, and I'm including over Tim Burton or Nolan or whoever, but basically the people who've interpreted those characters the best were the animators. Batman the Animated Series, Bruce Timm and Paul Dini. Is the best Batman adaptation you'll ever get. And then Superman the Animated Series didn't last as long, and I do think people generally just love Batman more. The Batman the Animated Series was perfect for that character, but the Superman Animated Series didn't just follow what Batman did. It was perfect for Superman. It was brightly lit. There was hope to it, a little bit of humor, and they could do much more epic things. Obviously, he's in space and he's fighting Lobo and he's doing all that kind of stuff. And you'll have a wacky episode with Mr. Mxyzptlk, and then you will have something that's deadly serious. The next episode with Darkseid. I'm like going, this is all I need. This is what I want. If only there were real people doing this shit.
Right, I know. But I was going to mention...
Because me dressing up in a cape in my apartment is just not doing it anymore. I'll save you, Lois.
Hello?
Hello. Yeah, it's actually me picking up my phone, and it's the landlord going, your neighbors are complaining a lot of bouncing noises. Well, I'm jumping off my bed. It's simulating flight.
I remember seeing this documentary about the making of the Batman series, the animated universe. They got into Superman too, I think, eventually, but I think that's a really good example of the studio putting trust in the creators, saying, "Hey, look, here's this IP we have. We want to do something with. You guys know the character. Go do something cool." And they had almost complete freedom at how they wanted to do it.
I like the way, and you are a very fair-minded, gentle-natured person, Chad, because when you say trust, what it meant was they just didn't care. In other words, in a way they did, because the animated Warner Brothers animation is it's like an offshoot. They're just like, get us some more money, please. So use Batman however you like. They just didn't watch and didn't care what they were doing as long as there was no nudity. They were just or violence. They basically said, do a series that's good enough to where we can do tie-in toys for Burger King, and action figures. And that was literally all they didn't care. Yeah. Which meant you had people, because Bruce Timm and Paul Dini in the animation realm are like Kevin Feige. The people who know how to do the stories, but also are real diehards. They know the worlds they're dealing with, the characters, and they're basically like they were given the reins and no one watched over their shoulder. It was like, oh, great. And it was a success, man. I've got the box set of both. So good.
I remember, didn't we go see the movie that came out? Was it the Phantasm?
Mask of the Phantasm.
I think you and I went to go see that when it came out.
And actually, that was great too.
It was, yeah.
It's now actually comics canon. It's taken a long time, but I think maybe Tom King, who's a really good Batman writer, maybe not Tom King, but one of the recent good Batman writers has actually brought, what's her name? The Phantasm. Has actually introduced her to the comics. Took a long time, but now she, as an early girlfriend of Bruce Wayne's who became the Phantasm, that's now in the comics too. Just like Harley Quinn started in the animated series, and after years, they're like, oh, we should put her in the comics. Now we should have Margot Robbie in booty shorts playing her. I have problems with that character. I love that character in the animated form. And conceptually, I love that character. But again, it's like little girls look up to Harley Quinn now. Like, she's been made accessible, and she's an anti-hero. So she's allowed to end up on like the kids' cartoons. And I keep thinking, she is the Joker's ex-girlfriend. She has murdered dozens of people, but by all means, make sure your little daughter has her on your t-shirt and she's running around, I want to be Harley Quinn for Halloween.
Yeah.
I want to be Jeffrey Dahmer for Halloween. He's adorable. All right, I'm exaggerating a bit. But
Darth Vader? I mean...
Okay, yes. Okay, yes. Fine, whatever. But anyone that looks up to them as anything
at least he's not wearing hot pants.
he is in my fan fiction. I haven't shown you those sketches, Chad. Oh, man. You can go to the Spirit Halloween store and get a sexy Vader costume for this Halloween.
I'm sure you can.
Sexy Vader. Oh, I have seen like a sexy R2-D2 and sexy C-3PO costume for ladies. Yeah. And I'm like, God, that's just wrong.
Anyway, so getting back to quickly, Batman v Superman and the frustrating aspects of that. There was one scene that was actually kind of tantalizingly, frustratingly close to what we would want. Yeah. Where Clark Kent is investigating the Batman, I think, for some reason, and he's at Wayne. There's some big event at Wayne Manor, or some where they're both. Bruce Wayne's there, Clark Kent is there.
Oh, they have this in the. There's a little bit of that in the trailer, and they meet at the party, and then Lex Luthor interrupts, and this version of Lex Luthor, man, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. Oh, terrible. But there's some cool stuff happening that where Superman's like listening to conversations and and they're kind of sneaking around and they meet each other and like like
sizing each other up.
But then it just obviously that was really the only part of the movie that I really liked. But it was frustrating. Which this kind of nicely dovetails into the next subject I wanted to talk about, which was I listened to was one of the I forget how long ago this was, one of an episode of the panel up.
Oh,
with your friend John.
Yeah.
Where y'all were talking about the Batman. The Matt Reeves film. Robert Pattinson, is that right?
Yeah.
The guy who plays...
surprised me with how good he was.
Yeah. I was very pleasantly... again, like you said on the podcast, like when you heard about it, you're like, we don't want another DC movie and another Batman. But and I only knew that actor from stuff I hadn't watched, whatever that vampire thing.
The Twilight series.
I was like, But yeah, it was actually surprisingly refreshing and
I can still nitpick
it,
which if you listen to that episode, I certainly did. But you could tell that Matt Reeves also gets it. You could tell that Matt Reeves, who is an unabashed fanboy and doesn't try to hide that he steals. I mean, he in interviews is like going, he goes, very influenced by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale's Long Halloween. I also took bits from this run. And he's basically just saying, like, I took bits from Miller's Year One. And obviously the fans, the comics fans like going, oh, we know. But you did a great job of fusing it all together and giving us a Batman who, I still don't like his take on Bruce Wayne as being this, like, antisocial, weird, twitchy guy. Because when you immediately go, oh, yeah, he's a Batman. There's a reason Bruce Wayne pretends to be a playboy, and it's because, well, that's to divert attention. But, I mean, just he's a detective in that movie. There's detecting going on. Him and Gordon in that movie, chef's kiss. Them working as a team. That whole thing of like, you're going to have to punch me and grab the keys to get out of here. And he's like, all that stuff I was down for. I really, really loved the Batman. Yeah.
So, and y'all touched on this subject, and y'all seem to be not in agreement about this. the idea of Warner Brothers or whoever, the new DC division that they're trying to create now. I don't know.
We have no idea what it's going to be, but yeah.
The idea of them using the Batman as ground zero or the foundation for a new cinematic universe.
Yeah, it's tricky.
And you were like, I'd like to see that, and I think. Was it Mike and John were like,
Well, actually, John has over the. John is a guy who's always willing to give the benefit of the doubt to, and he sees the good in a lot of stuff that everyone else craps on, but also I think there's just part of him that is happy there's a movie that has Captain Marvel in it, happy that, so he might realize that that Aquaman isn't as great as he thinks it is, but he's just so happy with it, you know? So for a long time, he kept going, no, they just need to, they're fixing it already. You know, as each movie, they're fixing the DCEU, and they don't need to get rid of any of that stuff. It'll still be Henry Cavill. Let's get Ben Affleck back and all that stuff. Now he is so fed up with just how much of a shit show Warner Brothers has become and how they're handling DC that even he's like going, yeah, man, I don't know what they're doing. And he's like, I'm going to go see Black Adam, but I have to because it's Black Adam and you've got Dr. Fate in it. And it's like, yeah, same here. Yeah. I'll go see it. I'll probably dislike it.
Yeah. I just really wish they would get their shit together. And here we have one of their major characters finally done
really well. Yeah.
And there's this topic I saw this on John Campio's show. They addressed this issue recently, and they were all in agreement. Like, nah, they shouldn't expand this. You know, don't put any Superman or Flash or anything into this. It's going to make it going to mess up the tone. And
tone is always the thing it comes to, especially because of Batman is so specific. And I always hear, and it was the same when Nolan's movies were considered like, he's done it. He's cracked the Batman code. This is what people want. And then people immediately started saying like, are you ever going to have Superman guest star in one of these? Because we understand this young Cavill guy has just been cast. And he's like, no. He goes, in that universe, I can't picture an alien in a red cape showing up, you know, flying into that city. And I'm like, well, that's the comics, man. You can't be afraid to say I'm making a comic book movie.
Right. And that was the thing they were saying is like, I don't know. They were saying, I can't picture this being like the Snyderverse or the CW verse. So, well, it won't be if that's the whole point of the, you know, Donner's rule of verisimilitude is like, you've got to kind of approach it as if what would it be like? I mean, in real life, what if somebody like Superman showed up? You know, and Donner
in the case
addressed that by showing the crowd like freaking out.
Yes,
like the very first reaction we have of Superman appearing is somebody reacting to his outfit.
Yeah,
and he's hey Jim, you know, definitely has not aged well, that scene, but that was great to have people reacting to his outfit first.
That scene is one of my favorite in all of cinema history.
We used to talk about that. Yeah,
I still want to locate that actor and just do like a quick interview. Did you ever listen to the podcast I Was There Too by Matt Gorley?
No.
Matt Gorley is one of the improv comedians from Super Ego, and he actually produces a lot of podcasts, but he's a very funny guy. He had a podcast called I Was There Too, where he would interview people who had bit parts or noticeable walk-ons in famous movies. Like he interviewed like 3 of the people who were bus passengers in Speed. You know, it's just like, and they're not big names, but he's just like, what was it like being on the set doing this and that? And I always wanted to write in because he's like my age, and I always wanted to send him an email. He doesn't do it anymore, but like, look up the guy from Superman the movie who says, say Jim, woo, that's a bad outfit. Woo! He gets 2 woos. Do you think that they paid him by woo? I think they probably afterwards said, look, man, you were only contracted for 1 woo. I don't think we can pay you for the extra woo. And he's like going, you're paying me for that extra woo.
What makes that scene complete is Christopher Reeve's reaction to him, just very politely. Yeah. Excuse me.
Well,
doesn't ignore him. Again, doesn't blow him off.
That is, oh God, Chris Reeve.
That's Chris Reeve, yeah.
Chris Reeve got it. The idea that Superman, no matter who he encounters, whether it's a criminal, a person who's actually getting in his way innocently, like a pedestrian, or just whoever, a child, he treats them all with dignity, decency, and he's just like, thank you very much. I do have somewhere else I have to be right now. Mm-hmm, it's like, I'm very sorry, I must go. It's like, you don't mess with him. He's going to save somebody over in fucking Saskatchewan right now, and then he's over to Cuba. Let the man work. But I love that he'll take it just a couple seconds like, are you okay? Great. Yeah. Have a good night. Whoosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
He'll even pull a fucking cat out of a tree for a little girl who's about to get smacked. That's the scene that doesn't hold up well.
Yeah,
you know the re-edited version.
Didn't I tell you not to lie?
Yes, the re-edited version. They've taken the smack out of it.
Oh, they did. Yeah. That was because
didn't I tell you not to lie? Is where they end it. You don't hear the.
Yeah.
I'd love it if they stayed on that scene, let the slap in, and Superman zooms back in and is like, "What is your problem?
Yeah.
Leave that girl alone. She didn't
That
lie."
was a very odd choice that they put that in there.
Well, I mean, verisimilitude. I think there are plenty of little girls that got smacked for talking about flying men getting their kittens out of trees.
But not to get too far afield, but that politeness that Chris Reeves approached the character, I thought Brandon Routh carried that on very well. He got that part of the character so well.
I think that Brandon Routh walked a very good line of he was told probably be as much Chris Reeves as you can while still bringing your own stuff to it, because he's not doing an out and out impression, but he's capturing a lot of the feel when he's walking around as Clark Kent, the goofy body language and the whole thing with him eating the sandwich and he's got like the lettuce sticking out and he's like, what? And you're like, I know, it's perfect. It's just like, there's a part of Superman when he's Clark that is only taking his normal things he would do and he is heightening it a little. He does try to I have to soften my image even to the point of looking slightly doofy. And that's great that it's a performance and it's not. Yeah. I still, one of the best scenes in the entire world, I'm going back to 78 again, but the whole thing of the date where he goes in and he takes the glasses off and he's going to tell her.
He straightens up.
Yeah. He's like, Lois, and he changes the voice. It's like, there's something I've been meaning to tell you. And then he just loses the resolve. Superman being vulnerable and going, no, I have to hide again. Put the glasses back. Fuck. Sorry.
There was one little touch that I maybe laughed when I was watching Superman Returns last night, and I kept winding it back because I thought it was so funny. And it struck me that there was a distinctly Brandon Routh thing when Lois is introducing Richard, her boyfriend, to Clark for the first time. Oh,
right. He was Perry White's kid or something, right?
Cousin or something. Yeah, nephew. I can't remember what it was.
Maybe nephew.
Yeah. And she says, "Oh, he's also a pilot and he loves horror movies." And Clark goes, "Oh, yeah." Like this little, which was that is so from seeing Brandon Routh carry on into Legends of Tomorrow and playing Ray Palmer. He
actually does have a good comic sense.
Yeah. And that was totally a Brandon Routh thing. I'm sure Christopher Reeve could have done something similar to that, but it wouldn't have been the same.
Yeah.
That was totally Brandon Routh. I thought that was beautiful.
Did you? I mean, we talked about this again, we won't get too far off topic, but you did watch the crossover, the Crisis on Infinite Earths they did on CW?
I didn't watch the whole thing.
But did you watch the one where Brandon Routh is older Superman, and I
rewatched
the black
one of those scenes. Yeah, I rewatched one of those scenes last night.
That's pretty great.
I want to go back and actually watch all those episodes, but I was just struck. This is one of the things that frustrated me about a lot of the shows is that how low budget it was.
Yeah,
that
it's very TV.
He fights Tyler Hoechlin's Superman, whom I also really like, and it's all just kicking each other around one room. Eventually,
I know. It's like two Supermen, and they're like going, "I am so going to throw you into that couch."
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe through a mountain. Maybe that's just me. Anyway. TV. But anyway, so back to the Batman starting off the new DCEU. I would be okay with it because of how good that the Batman is. I think that you would need a really good writer because you can bridge tones. And would it have been awesome if they had some sort of map, a plan where, let's say, a post-credit scene or something. I mean, they gave us a post-credit scene or whatever. They gave us Riddler in the next cell to the Joker. That's great. But, Bruce Wayne and the Batcave, and he's got a bunch of news articles up of bizarre, rescues around the world. And he's like, what's going on? Yeah. The idea that a character as grounded, says a guy talking about a dude who dresses up as a bat and fights crime, but a character as grounded and human as Bruce Wayne, who is still a great detective, I would love, like you're talking about, to see how he would react to,
yes,
I know this person is doing good.
Yes.
But this person should not exist. No one should be able to lift that. No one should be able to fly at the speed of light. I'm sorry. How do I trust this being? Start there and have them recognize, without saying your mom has the same name as my mom, but have them recognize the thing that connects them is that they care about people. They don't do it the same way. They don't have the same resources. Superman doesn't have that kind of money. He just has alien tech and all the powers of a god. But at the same time, Superman is not the detective that Bruce Wayne is. There's all kinds of ways World's
and they can learn stuff from each other.
Has been doing it forever. Well, since the 50s. But yeah,
so I mean, if they wait, because this was what John Campea said, which I don't always agree with him, but this is one thing where he was kind of ticking me off, because he was like, "Well, we've already Superman and Batman. Well, we've already seen that, like, yeah, but it hasn't been done well.
That's the thing.
We want it done well."
So people always say, and I do kind of agree, do we need to see the origin again of any of these characters? Do we need to see Uncle Ben die again? Do we need to see the Waynes get shot down in an alley again? Do we need to see the Rocket leave Krypton? And I agree, at this point, every child in the womb already knows the origins of these characters. You can skip that. Or if you do it, do a quick flash where it's just symbolically like, oh, in my moment of isolation, I'm reminded of how lonely it was drifting through space. Sure. But no, we don't need to see the fucking origins again. Get to it. And you're right. If we've seen Batman and Superman team up in a movie before, we still haven't seen it done well. No. And I think had they had the forethought, this is all retroactive thinking, but you should have followed the Marvel model. You should have from the beginning, and they didn't know when they started the Marvel films that they would lead to an Avengers, but you make the best possible movie of each one of these characters. Let's say the Batman is the first of his series. He is well introduced. Great. Let's have a Superman movie that sums him up and is great. Set in the same universe, but not dependent. So yeah, he fights Brainiac or whatever. Then let's have a Wonder Woman movie. And I did like the first Wonder Woman movie, even though I kept going, World War I? Fuck that noise. But we can't do World War II because they'll get confused with Captain America. No, they won't. She has boobs. So, well, so does he, and they are very nice. But anyway, So you do single films of all your majors, while seeding perhaps in button scenes during the credits some connective tissue, and it doesn't have to be them walking up to Wayne Manor, knocking on the door, and going, "Are you Batman? Hello, I am Superman." But it can be them being aware of each other.
Yes.
Great. And then you bring them together after having successfully established each one in their own movie. And you don't have to worry about how they blend. Look at the Avengers. The Avengers, and again, talk about a piece of crap person, Joss Whedon. Sorry, he was a hero of mine. Now I know he's a piece of crap person.
Yeah.
But he did a very decent job, not as a director, because his directing's pretty flat, but as a writer the Thor movies were very different than RDJ's Iron Man. And Captain America, the First Avenger, is perfect for that character, and it doesn't fit the tones so the tones are all over the map. Then you put them in the movie together, and they made it work. You know how they made it work?
Yeah.
Smartness, good writing. Yeah. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
Play on the fact that they are very different from each other, because you've got, Thor is still like, you mortals are ridiculous. And then like going, okay. And Tony Stark's making fun of him. All right, Hammer Man, it's hammer time. And Captain America going, I don't get any of these references. I mean, these are all perfect character beats.
Yeah.
Do the same with your Justice League. That's
exactly. Yeah.
So they could use a Batman as Batman's entry. Then give us a Superman movie by people who know who he is, care about him. Anyway, I think they should scrap the entire DCEU.
I'm total agreement with that.
I like Jason Momoa. I like him as a presence, and I thought he's very fun. # not my Aquaman. But I like him. Give him other movies. I will go see them. I think they blundered on Captain Marvel, especially with the Shazam nonsense. I still got problems with that. All of them have their problems. So how about we say good attempts?
Yeah.
Forget about them.
Yeah. I think they have to at this point. Especially everything has gone wrong with what what's his name?
Snyder.
No, what's the guy who plays Batman?
Ben Affleck.
Old man, Ben Affleck. Not wanting to do it anymore.
But then they gave him crazy amounts of money, and apparently they've brought him into this Flash movie.
And that's the other thing.
Aquaman, and they brought him into Aquaman too, which was supposed to not have Batman in it, and now he shows up in that. And they're like, Ben, here's a little bit more money, and he's like, you know what? I married J-Lo. I'm feeling a lot better. I'm off the booze. Sure, I'll show up.
But all the stuff now with the Flash movie and the other name, I'm
Ezra Miller.
Ezra Miller and all that crazy drama.
I mean, if you're going to shelve a multi-million-dollar movie, don't make it Batgirl, because why? I mean, that might be fun, and maybe they did a good job. We have no idea. But shelve the one with the dude who is clearly a danger to himself and others.
Yeah.
And I don't think, I mean, I don't want anyone who worked on these things to lose money. But at the same time, it's like, who's going to go out and support an Ezra Miller Flash movie, no matter how good the story is, no matter how excited I am to see Keaton back in the cowl for old man Batman.
Yeah. It's just enough. Enough is enough. And that's the thing.
Enough is enough.
If the problem with expanding from the Batman into other stuff is tone and like, well, not okay. Maybe that would be good, but not this Batman. It was like, well, if not this Batman, then what? What is it that we're waiting for?
Well, they they do have a multiverse to lean on now. They both, Marvel and DC, have. I mean, in the comics, they've had these things for a million years, but the movies are suddenly aware of like, holy shit, audiences will accept multiple people playing the same character without having connective tissue between the movies. Mm-hmm. So you could have two different James Bonds and two different James Bond franchises if you want. We could have a full-on, we get Jim Halpert as Mr. Fantastic in one Doctor Strange movie, but he might not be Mr. Fantastic when we do the Fantastic Four, and people will roll with it. You want to know why? Multiverse.
Yeah.
Here's your 8 Batmen. Hope you enjoy them.
Right.
But I think that it would be a mistake because again, Pattinson knows this character. He's done a good job. So has Reeves. So you can loan that character out. That character is seen in the daylight. I do like the whole idea at the end of the Batman. Well, he's on the bike as dawn is rising, and he and Catwoman split off their different ways. And we also saw him in broad daylight in the costume. Gotham knows he's not an urban legend anymore because he's literally helping victims out of the floodwaters and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. He is as human as it gets out in daylight. And I'm like going, so tone's not really a problem, as in Gotham is not always just drenched in darkness. It's just a city in this world that this guy dresses up in this cape and fights crime in. So in another city, it happens to be a guy who can fly.
Yeah. And the thing I really like about the idea too is like, we've got Batman's in a good place, Yes. It's like we don't want him to turn into, Ben Affleck's Batman, which was basically Iron Man essentially.
Yeah. But also, I have always disliked the idea of it's because Batman, sadly, is more popular than Superman from, I'd say over the last half century, Batman has eclipsed Superman. Superman is an incredibly worldwide recognized character, but he's just too corny for everybody, and everyone loves the broody Batman. So, in other words, it always bugs me that the movies make it seem like Batman came first. And so with the DCEU, the idea of Ben Affleck being this veteran Batman who's been around for 20 years, Robin's already been killed. For some reason, I'm still an urban legend after 20 years. I don't know how, but apparently no one knows I exist. And Alfred's almost dead, and I'm grizzled. And who's this upstart Superman? I'm like, don't do that, man. I love them coming up together. Or Superman being first. Yeah,
but I do like what you were saying that what would be really neat is to see Batman showing Superman starting to appear in the news,
right? And maybe they do something similar to what the comics did, which is maybe Superman hasn't had the costume for all these years. I don't mind Superman finally becoming public and wearing that costume, but the fact that Bruce Wayne may have been tracking all these mysterious rescues by an incredibly powerful godlike person, no capes, no name Superman. And he's just like going, what's happening in the world? And why is it focused around Metropolis a lot? And do I have to worry about this because Metropolis is just up the coast from me? By the way, I also hate in the Snyderverse where they're sister cities across a bridge. Fuck that noise. Fuck that noise.
Wasn't it that way in the comics at one point? Weren't they like right next to each other for a while?
No. At one point in did you ever read World's Finest, the graphic novel from the 90s that was done by Steve Rude?
No.
It was a graphic novel, and all it was not in continuity. It was just a story of Superman and Batman fighting together, switching the villains switch. Like the Joker says, I'm going to take on Superman. Lex Luthor's like, I'll take care of Batman. They switch cities. And in that, just because Steve Rude really wanted to concentrate on the dichotomy, he draws Metropolis like this gorgeous sci-fi paradise, and Gotham is, of course, this gothic nightmare where it's always dark. But he, in that story, decided there was a train line that directly connected the two cities. And there's a city in between, immediately halfway between Gotham and Metropolis, where apparently Superman and Batman as Clark and Bruce meet every Christmas to exchange presents. I mean, it's very focused on them as being friends, which I really liked. Plus the art is gorgeous because it's Steve Rude. But I think someone in the real DC universe is like, I kind of like that idea where they're very close. In my mind, they were always just East Coast cities. It's like maybe Gotham's somewhere around Boston, Metropolis is New York, or maybe flip that. Maybe it's, who cares? The idea of them being right across a bridge, you're sitting there going, then why would Gotham have ever had a crime problem? Because Superman would just be like, it is half a second for me to go clean up the Joker and Clayface and all those motherfuckers. So, and Batman's like, leave me something to do. Yeah. Come on, man. Right. So anyway, I don't like that idea of them being sister cities, but
I was laughing at this idea last night that this is something we would have thought of at House of Pies, but like for the post credit scene in the Batman, but see, they should not do this, but it would just be hilarious as to where
let me be clear. They should not do this.
They should not do this.
If anyone's at home listening, do not follow this.
Please don't. But like Superman, it's like a post-credit scene and Batman's having his morning coffee, and so all of a sudden Superman's on the news for the first time actually being interviewed. And he does a spit take with his coffee.
To tell you the truth, Chad, I don't believe in necessarily the Jungian idea of a collective unconscious or a shared mind, but it's like you reached into my soul and pulled out exactly what I want to see, and that is Bruce Wayne doing a spit take. It's like, is there something wrong with your coffee, Master Bruce? It's like, did you see this shit? Kate Wonderstun City. Did you see that shit?
But it would be cool to have a scene like that. Maybe not as far as the spit take, but something like that would be kind of cool. Like,
well, I mean, again, the whole idea is, and I mean, it's a no-brainer. And again, they do this in comics. There are plenty of talented writers in comics that should be tapped to write the screenplays, or they can call me. I will give out my number at the end of this podcast. But anyway, so the whole thing is the idea of how these things don't work is the strength of it. You have to call attention to it. Yes, Bruce Wayne would be absolutely dumbstruck by the idea of a superpowered person. And if Superman is the first one he encounters, like Wonder Woman maybe hasn't made it to man's world. Man, I'm a golden age comic guy. I mean, maybe she did the whole thing in World War II, but she was a legend, and then she comes back. That whole thing. And then he could just be like, does this mean I should stop? I mean, am I out of work? That kind of thing where he's like going, that guy doesn't need a plane. I have a cool bat plane. He doesn't even need that stuff. But also the paranoia that is a Batman trait of him going, I also need to know how to take him out just in case he loses control. And I know they did stuff like that in Justice League and in Batman versus Superman of like, I can't trust you. You're too powerful. Yeah, but for the sake of our enjoyment as the audience, You got to get over that shit fast and have them work together.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
maybe put some color in it and not make everything sort of grimy, gritty, gray, blue filtered. Jesus Christ. The whole Snyder aesthetic. Fuck you.
I know.
Even Superman Returns muted the colors. And I was like, stop it.
Like,
what's with this maroon cape and this?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Christopher Reeve, look at the dude. He's in excellent shape, and he is unashamed walking around in a Lycra spandex, bright blue, red, and yellow suit. And he makes it work because for him, he's playing it totally natural.
Mm-hmm.
If he plays it natural, the audience will accept it. But now they have to have these textured, like body armor suits. Even Superman has like these, like rubber little designs and stuff on it. It's like, what are you guys afraid of? Blue, red, yellow. Boom.
Yeah.
You want to jazz it up a little? Okay.
Yeah.
But Jesus Christ. And I didn't like the design of his costume in Superman Returns. That
I wouldn't
little S, the long torso, and the itty bitty booty short red thing.
And that was the beginning of getting rid of the yellow S on his cape.
Yeah.
Which they still haven't brought back on any of the iterations I've seen.
Live action will probably ever see that again.
Yeah.
I think they just prefer just a straight red cape. The yellow S on the back is a very Silver Age thing. But was I happy about it in Superman? Yep. Superman the movie.
Yeah.
You know what I'm afraid of is rewatching Superman 3 or Superman 4. I'm afraid of that.
That you might like it?
No, I know I won't. It's just that it's almost like I don't want to watch those ever again because I want to keep Christopher Reeve, who was always good, even in those shitty movies, but I want to keep his Superman preserved in their perfection, as perfect as they could be for 1978, 1979, whatever. Superman 2, I got problems with as well. The whole in order to bone your girlfriend, you have to become immortal. How does that work?
Yeah.
And getting in a red sun chamber? Okay.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
It did make for a couple of good scenes.
I will kiss her and make her forget. I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, I didn't like that either, yeah.
I will capture Kryptonian villains with this polyurethane S I pulled off my... What? They're just decisions in Superman 2. I'm like, not even the comics get that batshit, man.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of it didn't make sense, but there's that one scene where he gets the shit kicked out of him at the diner. Oh, man. And he sees his own blood for this first. Yeah. And he's freaking out. It's my blood. And then I love it. Lois says something like, didn't they warn you about, did you know about this or something? Is this, my dad told me. I just didn't listen. And then he gets up.
Yeah.
And then he gets a little more resolved and he gets up. Like, that moment is so great.
The whole thing is that what makes that goofy storyline, and it's kind of goofy the way it's resolved, but it has an emotional core that works. And the emotional core is to once again show to the audience that he will sacrifice everything, including his own happiness, to set the world right, to save people. Yeah. And he loves Lois, but he can't, it's too selfish of him to give up being our protector so he can get the nookie. So he's like, you know what? I'm sorry, but him, the cheat of him erasing her memory, it should have been much more mature and adult of him going, Lois, I do love you. You know I'm Clark. We've got that out of the way, but I have to keep doing this, and have her be a grown up and go, I understand.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
is emotionally weighty.
Right.
But they wanted to reset. It's just a reset button. It's like now she'll continue thinking Clark's a dwarf, even though she's totally done him in the fortress. And that's not a euphemism. She did him in the fortress, in that big old clam-shaped bed. But man, do I love Superman and Superman 2.
Yeah. And speaking of which, I think we talked about this shortly after it came out.
The Donner cut.
Yeah, I think it was around the time that you were in town doing the Zuza's Petals album. And I think we were in agreement that there's just this was a nice idea.
Yeah.
And it's great to see some of the stuff that was cut out. Like what Marlon Brando actually
an extra, it works really well. As you watching it as a film, you're like, okay, not really. But it is like if you had read, like the Making of Star Wars books, that book that I talked about last time, when you it's like that because you're seeing what is essentially a rough sketch of what he would have done. It just doesn't work as its own experience.
No.
But it makes things like him flying backwards through time, her dying she's supposed to have died in the second movie, not the first. And I mean, there are things where you're like going, oh, yeah, I can see that would have made things a lot tighter and a lot better. However, I will say the gut punch of watching Superman the movie as a kid and watching Lois die, that has stayed with me my whole life.
I was thinking about that last night. That moment is just because because we had long conversations about the time travel thing and how it was we loved it, but we also were like, wait, what? Like, what is he doing? Is he turning back time, or is he actually spinning the earth? And
I have still to this day arguments with people that because when you bring up Superman the movie, even decent fans of it will just sit there going, yeah, I'm sorry, but spinning the earth around to make time go backwards. I'm like, you guys don't get it.
He's traveling.
I still have to sit there going, it is just a visual interpretation of him flying backwards through time. Right. He is not going so fast that he's causing the earth to reverse, which is making time reverse. He is flying backwards through time in a circle, and you're actually seeing him go back through time by them showing the earth turn backwards. It's not his cause. He's not causing that, and they're not implying that if you suddenly spun the earth backwards, time would reverse. You idiots! And then what I do, which is really bad, is I will usually punch them. And I'm not very physical. I will hit people about this and then walk off, and they're concerned because I'm talking about a movie I saw when I was 8 years old. And I understood it then, and I can't believe people still don't get it today.
Yeah. It's actually it is a crazy bit of what the Deus Ex Machina it's pronounced. It is nuts. But it's that way, the weight of that moment you're talking about where Lois dies and he just realizes he's completely fucked up. And he's left with no choice. He's going to break the cardinal rule that his dad told him.
This is why this movie works. Where a lot of, when you don't put a lot of thought into how you're going to do it, just you're going after the money. Let's do a quick thing, and you're like, okay, I could have just done a simple comic book movie, but the reason this works is because Donner with the screenwriters, Tom, they could have just had him go, I'm going to fly back through time and fix it. But they actually have him, it is a little on the nose, but he is confronted by, this will have consequences. Do you understand that you are now being selfish? You, Superman, Kal-El, we raised you better than this, and there are rules to your powers, and this is something you're doing only for yourself. And him going, well, this time I cannot handle this. Is like, she will not die because I got here too late.
Which was 2 seconds too late, whatever it was, It's just so great. And
and of course the emotional impact of her rolling down the window, and to her, she's just like, hey, thanks, that was kind of crazy. And you look kind of weird. He's like, no, I'm just glad to see you. And again, his acting, the way he's playing it, like, I'm not letting on to, she'll never know. And he's just like going, I'm just glad you're alive to give me shit. Cause she does, you could have picked me up down there. You could have done it. And she's like, thanks a lot, Superman. And just like when we cut to Jimmy, and if he was like, thanks a lot, Superman. Great. What a help. It's like, well, sorry, I was a little busy. Like, saving the fucking world. I'm sorry. Yeah. I love it.
And that little bit of dialogue between Jimmy and Lois after he flies off again. So he's a busy guy, Man. It's just so great.
Like he cares about all of us, Jimmy. I'm like, yes, he does. God damn it. I don't know what it is in our personalities, and I would love to talk to other diehard Superman fans. I think some people are drawn to the character because of the history of it, and a lot of people are drawn to the character because of powers, that kind of thing. And I love when people dismiss, especially grown-up superhero comics fans, as being like, you're emotionally immature, and it's all a power fantasy. And I go, you guys don't get it. I do love reading about people with bizarre powers fighting each other, and that's fun. That's escapist stuff for me. But the reason it resonates and the reason this means something to me has nothing to do with that stuff. It isn't about the power fantasy. For me, it is almost like a diehard Christian being caught up in the scripture, in the teachings of Jesus, because it's about the ideals behind it. And it is not about the fact he can fly, lift things, and so forth. It's about what he's choosing to do. And the idea that comforts me, and I know that you and I both, as a lot of people, we came from homes of divorce, and I know that perhaps your home life as a kid was a little shaky. Mine was sometimes great, sometimes shaky, and then there was a divorce. But I think maybe as a kid, reading in the comics and then seeing on the big screen a character that I didn't see as a father figure, but I did see as someone, a friend, someone who is looking out for everybody, who's expecting nothing in return, doesn't want the parade, doesn't care about that stuff, has people that are very close to him, but even they only get a fraction of what he can give because he's trying to do everything for everybody else. That's the thing. It's a idealist core, not a power fantasy where, I mean, I would not build a church of Superman, but the same ideals that I, as a young Christian, when I was in church, I'm like, the ideas are the same. It's treating someone the way you wish to be treated, looking out for your neighbor, all of that stuff, as hokey as it is. That's why I love the goody good characters. And I get mocked by other comics fans because I will always say it's like Marvel, my favorite, Captain America. Or in the X-Men, I love Cyclops. Everyone hates Cyclops. I'm always like, I like the goody goods. I like the people who are just decent and maybe boring to everybody, but I'm like going, I love an anti-hero, and I love like dark, tortured guys. Like, I will take it out on crime. I love the Shadow. I love stuff like that. But I much prefer the ones who are just in it to help.
Yeah, and to do the right thing. Yeah, the Luke Skywalker mentality. It's like, right. I don't care what all your Jedi rules are. I'm going to go save my friends. Screw
yes.
You guys,
oh man. I mean, and again, I'm telling you the consequences of that. He's like, yeah, I understand that it ruins my training, Yoda. I realize that this is what you don't think I should be doing, but they're my friends and they're about to die. And if I can do anything to stop that, I'm going to. Yeah. That's all I want. A hero.
It's like, I can't kill my own father. I'm holding out for a hero. Yeah. Like that conversation that he has with Obi-Wan in Return of the Jedi, like, but I can't kill my own father. And Obi-Wan kind of goes, well, he kind of does his latest guilt trip on him. I guess we're screwed then. It's a shame.
If I show you some footage from the prequels, you'll want to. Right. I have two words for you, Hayden and Christensen. I'm going to show you a line of dialogue that your dad said to your mom that's going to make you throw up. It has to do with sand.
Right. Right. But anyway, that is one of the reasons why I like. There's a lot of problems with the Superman and Lois show that's out now.
Yeah,
but that iteration of Superman that Tardo Hecklin's doing, great. He gets that perfectly.
I feel weirdly like that was a dictate of that show, that they realized that they didn't have to follow the imprint that the movies were. And certainly there's, for every Snyder defender and fanboy, there's plenty of people going, that's just not my version of the character. That's not who I like. And they're like, you know what? Let's give them something. And yes, I think, again, heart's in the right place. And the relationship is good. He is a good actor, being a decent father and hero. It is pretty much all you want, except for I sit there going, TV. Though I will say every now and then I've watched some episodes where I'm like, well, they spent some money on that. They had that fight scene in that very first episode, or maybe second episode, where they're falling through the upper atmosphere, having a fight. And I was like, not bad TV.
It is way better production quality than almost any of the CW shows before it.
Yeah.
So Yeah, that I like that.
Now,
I just
it's
wish they'd
no
get better
Lois and
writers for the
Clark.
show.
It's no Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman. That was pretty awesome. Any Superman iteration where he ends up fighting Drew Carey, that's.
I don't remember much about that show.
I remember living at Dwight's. Why do I say living at Dwight's? It was our apartment. His name was on the lease. But I remember watching the premiere, the 2-hour TV movie premiere, and I was like, "Oh yes, here we go, a new Superman for a new age."
Oh yeah, I was excited about it too.
At least that first episode, I remember going, maybe. And then by second episode, I was like going, "Oh no, no, this isn't for me." So is there anything else for us to say other than the fact that DC needs to call us soon and we'll get it all worked out?
Yeah.
Actually, it would be Warner Brothers, not DC. So I also want to ask you, have you read Superman 78?
No. Is that a graphic novel?
Yes. Let me show you real quick. Okay. I'll be right back.
All right.
So DC did a whole series of graphic novels called Batman 66, which were basically as if they were continuing the 1960s Batman show. So it's drawn like the people then. It's done in the style, so they're not trying to adultify it. And it's just like if they had a better budget and if they started including characters that didn't exist back then, but it's like a 60s version of Harley Quinn or a 1960s version of whoever. Because they never had Poison Ivy on the 66 show, like a actual actress. But they do it for the graphic novel. A lot of fun. It was a huge success. So they did Wonder Woman 77, which was like a graphic novel continuation of the Wonder Woman TV show. She's drawn like Linda Carter, same costume. They go to discos. It is set in 1977. So they just did, over the last year, Superman 78. And it's as if there had been a continuation of the movies, the Donner films, with a bigger budget, pretending that Superman 3 and 4 didn't happen. But they draw Lois like Margot Kidder. They draw Superman, as Christopher Reeve.
Very cool.
And they draw Lex Luthor as, and this one does bring Brainiac into it. And you can tell, even though they're not being explicit, they're basing him visually on David Bowie, as if they had cast David Bowie as Brainiac.
Very cool.
And of course, at the end is a tribute to Donner. So it reads like, because they didn't try to write it differently than one of those movie scripts. So you can hear the voices. They really capture them really well. And again, Perry White, you can hear, it's like, yep, that's him. That's totally Perry. Come on.
That's great.
Come on.
Who draws it?
This is Wilfredo Torres, who's very, very good. And he gets it because, they're on Krypton. In the plot of this, instead of like in the classic comics, how Argo City was where Supergirl came from, but Brainiac also captured one of the cities of Krypton before it blew up. And Kandor. Yeah, Bottle City of Kandor.
Yeah.
In this, it's Superman's parents lived in Kandor. So they're not dead.
Wow.
So this has the Bottle City. So it actually has Superman going into it and getting to meet Laura and Jor-El. And they're like, we are so proud of you. You turned out great.
Drawn as Marlon Brando?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Kal-El, my son. Yeah. They even write him with a lisp. No, it's a joke. Anyway, highly recommended. I think
I'm going to go see if I can find that today. If I can.
And they just put out Batman 89. Which is based on the script that wasn't done because Schumacher took over. But it's written by Sam Hamm, the guy who wrote the scripts to the first 2 Batman movies for Tim Burton.
Wow.
So he's still alive. And they said, do you want to turn that script that never got filmed into a graphic novel? He's like, fuck yeah. And so they draw it like it has Two-Face becoming the character, the villain, and it's Billy D. Williams. How Billy D. Williams would have looked as Two-Face because they set him up as Harvey Dent. They introduced Robin, who was supposed to be Marlon Wayans back in the day. So they introduced the Robin character that we would have gotten. they draw Barbara Gordon, who wasn't in any of the two movies, but she was going to be introduced. They draw her as like young Winona Ryder. I was like, God, good choice. She would have been awesome. So it is just like continuing as if that was your idea of awesome Batman, here we pick up all the threads. The Joker thing happened. So did the Penguin thing and Catwoman. And she's drawn as Michelle Pfeiffer. She's also in the Batman 89. They're fun. For any fan that's kind of like, I don't want to get caught up in the new continuity of the comics. It's too much to get into. But you want to scratch that sweet spot of like, this would have been like if that movie had happened and it didn't.
Yeah. Very cool.
That's Brendan's recommendation corner.
Well, thank you. I'm going to go see if I can find that at Nan's, which is
a comic shop here in Houston. Is it still around?
I think it is. Yeah. It's been a while since I've been over there, but I'm pretty sure it's still there.
I remember Phoenix Comics. I'm sure that's gone.
Was that the one on Shepherd?
Yes.
By Star Pizza?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's gone. Yeah. That's where I remember you and me and Willie Golden going to buy Death of Superman the day it came out.
Well, we tried. Do you remember that? Do you remember how far we had to go?
No, I've forgotten this.
It became a whole search because they were sold out everywhere. We ended up at a mall out in somewhere like far out that had a card shop / comic shop. And that was the only place that still had them. And do you remember what we spent? It cost us like $15. They had already
for each issue, right?
Yes. Well, just the one issue. But they had already ratcheted up their prices because in that day it was impossible to find anywhere. And I remember that we bought ours and then we didn't even get out of the store. I mean, out of the mall. We tore that. Remember, it was in the sealed package. We tore ours open and we sat there and read them in the lobby of the mall. And then I had to be at work at Riverwoods
Theater. I can't believe I don't remember this. Yeah,
I had to be at work that night, and I used the armband. Remember, it came with the black armband with the Superman emblem. I wore that at work over my suit coat, and people were like going, "I'm so sorry, who died?" And I was like, "Superman died. Superman died today." Yeah, wow. I still remember laying down $15, and I was sitting going, "You are milking us," and they're like going, "Where else are you finding it?" And it was true because we tried like 3 or 4 shops before. I don't even remember who came up with like, I think there's a comic shop at this mall, like Greenbrier Mall or some kind of shit. I don't remember.
Yeah.
And we drove out.
Crazy.
And then we're like, "Do you have any?" And there's a line of people, and we got a few left. $15. Like, fuck you.
Yeah.
By the way, now it's worth nothing.
Yeah, I know. I think we all bought boom. At least. I think we bought 2 copies.
I think so. I think we did.
I actually still have an unopened one in my collection, just stashed in my closet.
I don't have my original anymore, but I've had so many opportunities. I've come across multiples. And I think at one point I had the big poster that came with it, which is the funeral procession. I think I had that framed at one point, and that's the whole thing of, you've got all the DC superheroes with the coffin and they're walking along with it. Still gets me, man. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm all right. Thanks, Chad. Good talk.
Right. Well, good talk. Let's wrap this up.
Yeah.
I think that was a good one.
Yeah.
There's lots more we could say about Man of Steel and stuff, but we'll save that for another day. What's that?
We'll return to it. We're not done with it. We're not done.
Yeah.
We have some words from Mr. Snyder. So wrap it up. So, give your official closing. What's the official closing? Don't we sing a song or something?
We're
so
know.
glad you came to hear us talk about the Man of Steel and shit. I mean, other shit. And we are so proud to have you here. Pretty good.
Or what about the thing we used to go, but look up in the sky, there's that guy.
Yeah. Look up in the sky, who's that guy? What is his name?
Who's he called?
Superman. People don't know there were lyrics.
Yeah.
And just like the Batman one, Batman's gonna kick your ass. Boom, boom, boom,
yes.
Boom. Anyway, so we should probably end with that.
Okay.
And wait for the lawsuits.
Yeah.